Hey everybody, welcome to this week's episode of Gary Talks. Exactly 1 month from today, I'm going to be turning 50. So this season I've been looking back at my top 10 favorite movies from the year I was born, the year I turned 10, the year I turned 20. And on today's episode, I'm going to look back at my 10 favorite movies from the year I turned 30, 2005. Now, I gotta be honest with you guys. Turning 30 was really hard for me. I know a lot of people say turning 40 is scary, turning 50 is scary, but for me, turning 30 was the worst. In 2005, my dad's cancer took a turn for the worse, and I had to leave Los Angeles, where it seemed like things were finally starting to work for me, and move back home. So here I am, 29, turning 30, living with my parents, working at a movie theater, which is the job I had had before I moved to Los Angeles. And I definitely had that feeling of, where's my life going? What's happening? And I was really depressed. Turning 30 was hard. But had I not moved back to St. Louis when I was turning 30, I wouldn't have had the chance to spend my dad's last few years with him, as well as meet my wife, who I met on the film festival circuit after I made a couple indie features there in the St. Louis market. So everything happens for a reason. And guys, just know, no matter how dark things seem, they will always get better. And yes, turning 30 was horrible, but the rest of my life has been great since then. So now, let's look at my top 10 favorite films from the year I turned 30, 2005. Starting with number 10, The Longest Yard remake. Adam Sandler's The Longest Yard remake delivers a satisfying blend of sports movie grit and broad comedy, updating the 1974 original with just enough swagger to stand on its own. Sandler plays Paul Crewe, a disgraced former NFL quarterback who ends up in a Texas prison and is forced to assemble a ragtag football team of inmates to take on the abusive guards. What makes this version work is the cast's chemistry. Chris Rock adds punch as the fast-talking caretaker, while Burt Reynolds, the star of the original, returns in a mentor role, bridging old and new with cool, grizzled authority. The film manages to be goofy and violent, and funny and sincere, without losing sight of its central theme, redemption through teamwork. The football scenes are surprisingly brutal and well staged, giving the third act a real sense of momentum. It's not trying to reinvent the genre, but it succeeds by leaning into the chaos, charisma, and camaraderie of its ensemble. Next up at number 9, Sin City. Sin City is a comic book come to life. Stylized, brutal, and unapologetically pulpy. Robert Rodriguez and Frank Miller translate the page to the screen with startling visual fidelity, using high-contrast black and white, splashes of color, and digital backdrops to create a hyper-noir playground of violence and vice. Structured as an anthology, the film weaves together hard-boiled tales of revenge, corruption, and twisted honor. Mickey Rourke, Bruce Willis, and Clive Owen headline the stories with grim determination, their voices growling through internal monologues lifted directly from Miller's dialogue. It's a heightened world where style is substance and morality exists in shades of blood and cigarette smoke. It doesn't ask you to care about realism, it invites you to get lost in the nightmare. I know it's hard for people today to remember that there was a time when no one would hire Robert Downey Jr., back before Iron Man, after all of his issues with the law and drugs and alcohol, he was untouchable. No one wanted to work with him. But Shane Black cast him along with Val Kilmer in a great movie, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, which I think is what led Robert Downey Jr. to getting Iron Man and changing everything about cinema today. So coming in at number 8, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. Kiss Kiss Bang Bang is a razor-sharp blend of noir, comedy, and self-aware chaos. Written and directed by Shane Black, the film thrives on its twisty plot, biting dialogue, and meta-commentary on the crime genre. Robert Downey Jr. plays a petty thief turned accidental actor turned accidental detective with manic charm, while Val Kilmer steals scenes as Gay Perry, a tough-as-nails private eye with zero patience for nonsense. Their dynamic is electric, part buddy comedy, part satire, part character study. The film juggles mystery, Hollywood cynicism, and emotional undercurrents without missing a beat. Every line feels quotable, every moment unexpected. The narration, often unreliable and fourth wall breaking, keeps the viewer guessing and engaged. It's the kind of movie that rewards rewatches, not just for its plot, but for how smartly it dismantles the genre while celebrating it at the same time. Next up at number 7, A History of Violence. David Cronenberg's A History of Violence is a slow-burning thriller that peels back the layers of domestic normalcy to reveal something darker lurking underneath. Viggo Mortensen is a mild-mannered diner owner who becomes a local hero after an act of self-defense, only to have his past come knocking. The film operates with quiet intensity, letting silences and gazes say as much as the dialogue. It's not just a crime story, it's an examination of identity, repression, and how violence stains everything it touches. A couple years earlier, Rob Zombie made a movie called House of a Thousand Corpses, and I couldn't wait to see it. There was this controversy. Was it going to be rated X? It was so violent. What was going to happen? Theaters weren't going to show it. So finally, it came out unrated. I went to see it at the theater, and I was like, that's it? I mean, it's just kind of like a Rob Zombie music video for an hour and a half, and I didn't love it. And then it was announced that Rob Zombie was going to do a sequel to that film called The Devil's Rejects, and I wasn't looking forward to it. I didn't see it in the theaters. I waited until it came out on DVD and rented it, and I was blown away. Coming in at number 6, The Devil's Rejects. Rob Zombie's The Devil's Rejects is a blistering, brutal road movie that dives deep into moral decay and dares you to empathize with the irredeemable. Following the Firefly family on the run from justice, the film inverts the typical horror structure by focusing on the villains as protagonists, and then making you question your own complicity as the violence escalates. It's raw, nihilistic, and soaked in the dust and blood of 70s grindhouse cinema. What sets it apart is Zombie's confidence as a filmmaker. The sun-baked cinematography, the killer classic rock soundtrack, and the lived-in grime of every frame create a world that feels both stylized and sickeningly real. There's no redemption here, just a trip through the American underbelly. It's disturbing, fearless, and singular in its refusal to offer comfort. You know how on movie posters there'll be a quote that says, "The funniest movie of the year"? Well, my number 5 pick was not the funniest movie of the year, as you'll find that movie later on this list, so we'll say the second funniest movie of 2005, Wedding Crashers. A perfectly calibrated mix of wild comedy and unexpected sincerity, Wedding Crashers rides on the chemistry of Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson at the peak of their powers. Their timing, banter, and ridiculous schemes fuel the film's first half, which operates as a gleefully R-rated ode to romantic mischief. But what makes the movie memorable is how it shifts gears. Once the characters are stuck in one wedding too long, the film examines commitment, identity, and the need to grow up. The supporting cast adds just enough absurdity to keep things unpredictable. Beneath the outrageous premise lies a story about friendship, loneliness, and emotional honesty. It's that rare comedy that manages to be endlessly quotable while still pulling off a meaningful third act without losing its edge. Coming in at number 4, Batman Begins. Christopher Nolan's Batman Begins reinvents the superhero origin story by grounding it in character, myth, and psychological realism. Nolan strips away the camp and gives Bruce Wayne the emotional depth he has often lacked on screen. Christian Bale plays Wayne as a man shaped by trauma, searching for purpose, and ultimately choosing to weaponize his fear into justice. The film takes time with his evolution, making the transformation into Batman feel earned, and for the first time, truly believable. Nolan's emphasis on theme and character elevates it far beyond normal genre conventions. This isn't just a reboot. It's a reinvention that treats its audience with intelligence, making Gotham feel like a real, corrupt, crumbling city and its hero a symbol born from both rage and hope. And now it's time for the funniest movie of 2005. Number 3, The 40-Year-Old Virgin. The 40-Year-Old Virgin balances raunchy humor with surprising vulnerability, setting a new standard for modern comedy. Steve Carell's Andy is the kind of character who, in lesser hands, could have been a punchline, but Carell gives him dignity, heart, and earnest awkwardness. The comedy is sharp and unrelenting, but it never mocks him cruelly. Instead, it surrounds him with a crew of loud, misguided, but ultimately supportive co-workers. Director Judd Apatow's debut feature manages to be laugh-out-loud funny, while exploring male friendship, social pressure, and the fear of intimacy. It's a comedy with soul, letting its characters be messy and real while still delivering quotable lines and outrageous set pieces that have aged remarkably well. I recently did an episode about my top 10 favorite music biopics, and my number 2 favorite film of 2005 is my all-time favorite biopic, Walk the Line. Walk the Line is an intimate, unflinching portrait of Johnny Cash's rise, fall, and redemption. Joaquin Phoenix doesn't just impersonate Cash, he inhabits him, capturing the voice, swagger, and deep internal torment of a man chasing fame while haunted by guilt and addiction. Reese Witherspoon is equally magnetic as June Carter, injecting the film with warmth and a quiet strength that serves as a counterweight to Cash's chaos. Director James Mangold balances the energy of tour life with tender, introspective moments, creating a biopic that feels both mythic and deeply human. The music is given space to breathe, performed live by the actors themselves, and it reinforces the raw honesty of Cash's journey. More than just a chronicle of fame, Walk the Line is a story of survival, self-discovery, and the redemptive power of love and song. And now for my number one film of 2005. When I saw this in the theaters, I loved it. I saw it 5 times in the theaters, and I feel like even though maybe people didn't love it in 2005, it's now appreciated and people really seem to enjoy it. The best movie of the year? Star Wars Episode III, Revenge of the Sith. A bold and tragic fall from grace, Star Wars Episode III, Revenge of the Sith elevates the entire Star Wars prequel trilogy by finally delivering the darkness and emotional weight it had been building toward. The transformation of Anakin Skywalker into Darth Vader isn't just a plot point. It's a devastating arc filled with betrayal, grief, and misplaced loyalty. The final duel between Obi-Wan and Vader and Mustafar, with its fire-lit choreography and searing emotional core, is the saga's most devastating confrontation. Visually, the film is sweeping, but beyond the effects and the politics, this is a film about how good intentions can turn into ruin, and how the collapse of a friendship can echo across a galaxy. It's a cautionary tragedy about power, fear, and letting go of everything that once defined you, and it's the best film of the year I turned 30, 2005. Be sure and come back next week when I'm going to look at my 10 favorite cop TV shows of all time. See you then.
From capes to tapes, Gary's on the case. He's breaking down each scene, every place. On Gary Talks, he's quick with his peculiar wits. From plot twists to the comic strips, Gary's flipping sick.